As a provider, you need to make that easier for people. I have a business client. Recently, she called me because she's had a sort of medium-sized firm doing her private client stuff for her, and that's the stuff that we include trusts and wills, and I don't do that work. But she's a creative business person. She is finding it hard to understand and digest the information that this law firm is giving her. I guess maybe the standard way that they communicate around these things. She's just sort of thrown up her hands and said, Tamara, can you be like a middle person and tell me what I need to know about this and what else I need to do? So I will work as an intermediary with other sort of lawyers in that space so I can hold her hand and take her through that, because a lot of these things are really obscure or just mystifying, and we really need to avoid that happening.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ways to Wealth. Today I am joined by Tamara. Tamara, why don't you give us too long didn't read about kind of what got you here and what you're up to and what you're working on?
Hi Charlie, thanks for having me. So I am a business lawyer. I work with small businesses and small not-for-profits. I have been doing this lawyering business for quite some time. I started out in doing dispute work, so being a litigator, but I decided that I actually preferred to help businesses grow and do positive things rather than fight with people about stuff. So I moved over into the commercial law space and worked for some medium-sized firms for a number of years, and then about 8 years ago I went out on my own so that I could own my own practice and do my own thing.
And there's a few different paths lawyers can take, right? And a boutique where you niche down, you can have your impact is quite awesome because you've got so much experience, and then you get to give that SME potentially the experience that they wouldn't necessarily be able to get if they went to a larger firm.
I mean, I think that's an interesting point. So a lot of small businesses actually need sort of day-to-day sort of retail, consumer advice, that sort of thing. And larger firms don't actually necessarily have people who know that. And then the other space where small business owners often land is the general practitioner, your local lawyer space. And they know lots about trusts and property conveyancing and a bit about business, but then they might not know anything about e-commerce, which of course has become like massive over the last 10 years. And it's an example of something that I've learnt a lot about along with my clients. So that's definitely something that I offer that a lot of lawyers don't understand very well.
Yeah, cool. So, you are an entrepreneur, right? So you definitely are. And I think that's really cool. Were you always entrepreneurial? Were you always thinking about your own firm when you were going through and working with other catalysts?
I think you get to a certain point in your career where you kind of go, I just need to be able to do things my own way and not have to run things past a bunch of partners or make things fit within existing culture that you're in, and also wanting to run my own schedule a bit more and have more flexibility also for my home life, work-life balance. So that is why I went out and eventually did go out and do it. But yeah, it took a little while. But I had a partner. My partner is my life partner. He's a barrister, so he's been working solo for a long time. So he was like, come on, Tamara.
Oh, okay. So he's pushing you along.
Yeah, and I was like, and it's different because barristers, they get their work from solicitors, whereas solicitors like me, have to go out to the market, and so it's a little bit more daunting. But eventually found my market. Found the
niche.
Yeah.
And it's cool that you had someone that, I was going to post it. I made this video of my kids the other day. We've got this huge tree that's over our trampoline in our garden.
Cool.
And they're basically climbing up this tree and dropping down. Right?
Yep.
And my son's got really good at it, where he can fall onto his back and do a backflip onto his feet.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
But my daughters are a little bit further behind, so they're still at their own stage. Having the ability to know that it's going to be okay is such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And having your partner there to basically help you kind of gain that confidence, totally cool.
Yeah.
And totally helpful.
Yeah.
Necessary, right? And there's, nothing more addictive than a salary. So being able to do that on your own is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's a necessary dynamic that I think is becoming it's permeating throughout society more so than ever. you think about how many people, even if they are in careers that have fractional part-time work on top of their primary income, has become far more prominent.
Yeah,
And I think that's actually helped and almost skewed the data in regards to recession data globally over this cycle,
Oh, yeah.
because less people basically go onto unemployment than they would have otherwise, and there's less layoffs or official layoffs,
Yeah.
which has really skewed the data and kind of hidden a lot of the pain.
Yes.
But it's also made individuals more robust, on
Yeah.
an individual basis, allowing them to kind of actually operate without the, back in the day, the union and the career and that salary. And
Yeah.
it's a different dynamic these days.
Yeah, I mean, I did notice it a lot, obviously, in 2020, and people were being made redundant, and a lot of them were like, okay, well, I guess this is my opportunity to start working on my own. And then, so I actually got quite busy because people were coming to me for startup advice, people going from, I guess, employee to independent consultant. And so it was really cool to see, and it was cool to be able to support them. And the other thing that has obviously really helped in recent times is also the technology, giving you the freedom to do things without large kind of infrastructures to deliver your services,
Totally.
Yeah.
And what, have you noted, what percentage of your meets are online? 80% now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, like 90%. So I was already, I was already, because I went out 2017, so I was like paperless, online, and being a commercial lawyer, you need a bit less like in person because, paperwork can be done online.
Yeah.
So I was already doing that. So it was quite easy to kind of keep doing that. And the other thing is I work from home and I save on overheads. I don't need meeting rooms. If people want to meet with me, then we'll just meet at a cafe. I'll go around to their offices. That makes me more affordable as well because I don't have massive overheads. So there's this more flexible way of doing things, which clients in my space relate to and appreciate because they don't want things to be the old way. Yeah.
I went to an investment firm's floor in a rather tall building in the city the other day, and I was like, so that's where all the fees are going.
I know.
The amount of obscenity and art and decor on these buildings is we're doing a study at the moment, and it's indicative, I guess, because we found some discrepancies between the public data on the KiwiSaver space that are basically, we've worked out the cost of KiwiSaver is 28 cents on the dollar.
Okay.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
The overall cost, if you put in basically opportunity costs, implicit costs, explicit costs, and then taxes, basically. 28 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, that's quite a lot. Yeah, it's a third.
Especially when you pay tax first anyway, and then you pay tax again.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot. So we need to change that, and perhaps a few less pieces of art and soap and couches in some of these institutions might be required, but will ultimately help everyone. Yeah, actually,
absolutely.
So it's interesting, right? I think that we've learned that you can do a lot more with a lot less, and that's only becoming more and more evident every day. And I was actually just talking about it with the last guest around the creator economy and independent kind of boutique firms, consultants and such. They've all spawned out and they've all found their niches, or they're finding their niches, and it's kind of disrupting the conglomerate, the model.
Yeah.
We have a few big firms that represent us in terms of our legal side and the CFO side, the accounting side. Yeah. And the main reason we use them is for the logo.
Because it gives you credibility in your market.
Right?
Yeah.
But we, also strategically, we work for three lawyers, and they will have different functions within our business. Specializing in the fintech space, which we need a lot of help.
For sure.
Plus then the more kind of commercial side, and then just generalist stuff. Yeah. So we have a few people work with, and that works really well for us. And actually everyone's kind of adapted to the fact that, you're kind of in that creator economy of, I'm going to have a little bit of this catalog, a little bit of this catalog. Yeah. And refining it to fit the purse strings. And as a struggling, poor startup like us, we have to deal with that same dynamic as a lot of small
Yeah.
medium enterprises that have to typically work out a way on how they fund these things.
Yes.
How do I fund good advice?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And because cash flow is such a problem for small to medium enterprises.
It absolutely is. Yeah. Yeah. So often people will come to me after they've been bootstrapping for a while saying, okay, now I've actually got the funds, so I can get the advice. So I've been kind of, winging it and hoping nothing goes wrong, but let's not do that anymore. So, yeah.
The sooner you can get to that place and get some sanity around. And we've learned a lot, right, about legal. And I think, quite cool for the audience is like discussing, hacks and tips and tricks on how to basically right-size your bill. And I know it's not great for
Yes.
but there are ways in which you can be smart and give great context to your legal or whoever you're working with so that you're not lost.
Yeah, particularly emphasize is that the more tidy, clean information and brief, it's like, that you give me at the outset, the cheaper the job will be. And
a good brief.
Yeah, and I mean, I need to ask the right questions, obviously, and give them an idea of what that brief looks like. But then, they go away for a couple of weeks and gather up all their information, then come to me. And then ultimately it will be cheaper than if I need to keep going back to you and asking you for, about this, or can you clarify this? So I think, clients who are able to kind of achieve that, they will, they're usually pretty happy to get at the lower end of my estimate. I usually give a little range.
Yeah.
So, but appreciate not every client has the ability to do that. And there's, neurodivergences and different ways of thinking. So I try to be...
That can be helpful.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, my clients are entrepreneurs, so heaps of them are...
Almost all on the spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. And so you can't work with me because you need to deliver everything to me in a nice, tidy platter. So I'm flexible.
You meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
But I think, like, for the startups, the more you can do, the better the brief, the better clarity, the quicker the turnaround time.
Definitely.
And the more confidence you can have in the advice ultimately.
Yeah.
And it's always good to have that piece of advice in the bottom drawer when you need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That obviously being in the finance space, it's like, especially in an environment, in financial advice, for example, which is very product driven in the regulation. And we're trying to provide a service that's ultimately not product driven.
Right. Okay.
And then trying to work out, okay, why do we fit in the market? How do we work effectively? How do you make a profitable business in that environment when, for example, the industry is very used to and acclimatized to the fact that the cost won't be seen directly.
Yeah.
We don't really pay an invoice when we consume financial products in this country.
Correct. Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah.
So you can have a coffee, potentially consume a product, and then you're paying forever.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And I think that she'll be right kind of mentality has kind of been accepted in that financial space. Like, I didn't get invoiced, should be right. Whereas actually, let's do the math.
Yes.
Let's have a little, let's run the numbers, but you can't, I don't think it's a great argument to try and push that down people's throat. So it's actually, as a business trying to innovate there, you have to be like, well, how do I just demonstrate the value?
Yeah.
So my clients aren't disgruntled. I don't know how much I'm paying. I feel like I'm not getting enough value.
Yes.
But I'm staying because I don't really feel confident to make that pivot.
Yes.
So it's
complex,
it's a really good space to be because everyone's a bit sleepy. I think the actual competition is here versus the US. It's a different game.
Right.
So there's a bit more, maybe there's a little bit less early adopter mentality perhaps and early kind of that movement. But there's a lot of large institutions that are kind of asleep at the wheel.
Yeah. Doing things the old way, right? Like the same old way.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then that's your opportunity.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit like the boutique, the move of the boutique firm. Well, we have two of the legal team, legal people we use are boutique, and they're awesome. Yeah, and we swear by them. And then we've got our more commercial firm that helps us with certain aspects. Sometimes bigger jobs. Yeah, not always. Sometimes we give the bigger jobs to the boutique. And I think what I've learned also is that actually you're always just dealing with people, especially in the professional service business.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And even in the, when you look at regulation and, these institutions, I think we just need to get to the heart of the person and then say, okay, Then you've got someone to call, someone to email with effectively. I think we're all just doing it.
Yeah. And I think as a provider, you need to make that easier for people. And not so much, I have a business client and she's had, this is a little sort of anecdote, but recently she called me because she's had a sort of medium-sized firm doing her private client stuff with her. And that's the stuff that we include, trusts and wills and that sort of thing. And I don't do that work, but she, she's a creative business person. She is finding it hard to understand and digest the information that this law firm is giving her in the kind of, maybe the standard way that they communicate around these things. And so she's just sort of thrown up her hands and said, Tamara, can you be like a middle person and tell me what I need to know about this and what else I need to do? So I will work as an intermediary with other sort of lawyers in that space, not that firm, obviously. We're going to pull the stuff out and, so I can hold her hand and take her through that, because a lot of these things are really like obscure or just mystifying. And we really need to try to avoid that happening. Yeah.
Well, I find out with the financial space, and advice specifically, is when I think about wealth, I go, well, the mortgage, the insurance and the KiwiSaver that you choose are going to contribute to your stability and your wealth overall, perhaps. But actually, so many of our decisions that drive our wealth are non-financial. So that's kind of where our membership, the membership we have comes in. We define our experts as financial and non-financial.
Okay.
And the non-financial are far more popular.
Right.
Because actually, sometimes we had this one the other day where there was a client that joined our, what we call Acuity Private.
Okay.
And she has a business, a great business, cash running business that she doesn't want to sell. She wants to do a management buyout. One of our experts has done 2 or 3 management buyouts. So the connection, you should speak to them.
Yeah.
And that's great because they're not selling anything. And a lot of people that have been there, done that, actually just want to be stimulated and want to give forward. And that's how we started to build this kind of expert network, which is both financial and non-financial for our members that get unlimited access to them.
Oh, that's cool.
So we just hope that our clients don't use this too much, because because we pay for all the sessions.
Right. Yeah. Can you give me an example of who are your non-financial, like what kind of things do they do?
So people that have built businesses and exited them, some people in the accountancy and like different legal spaces.
Right.
They're not giving official pieces of advice or work, but sometimes you just need to jump on the phone to someone, and it's a good subsidiary income for those experts.
Yeah.
We pay them for the same.
Yeah. Act like a sounding board, give people some pointers.
Ryan kind of calls it, you're almost like your personal board of directors.
Yeah.
But we temper that.
It's not really. No.
The directors have a lot of responsibility.
It's like an advisory board, which are becoming more popular.
It's like an advisory board that isn't there to sell you a product. It's there to just say, well, listen and give and bounce ideas.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our career decisions might be, I'm earning this great salary on my own and I'm thinking of jumping out, and my partner's been telling me to push out. What do I do? These are the things that I'm scared of.
Yeah.
Well, have you done that yourself?
Yeah.
In our case, obviously, our experts are entrepreneurs, investors, business operators, typically.
Yeah.
And then you've got some people on the consultancy side as well.
Okay.
And a health coach.
Ah, yes. That's a big thing, of course.
Which is really cool. And that's Helena, the other host of this pod.
Oh, yes, I've seen her.
We used to do 3 of us, but now we're divide and conquering, and she's a health coach.
Okay.
So she's in our experts.
Okay.
So one week you could see an advisor, financial advisor, and then the next week you could see the health coach. Because wealth is holistically thinking about wealth, like you said, it's not necessarily, well, like everyone said, it's not necessarily about money, it's about freedom, autonomy, happiness. Wealth is really happiness, but people like to talk about wealth because it's catchier.
Right.
But actually it's about being content and finding peace.
Yeah, and kind of having what you feel you need. So you're not feeling, I guess, that gaps to fill all the time.
Yeah. And just we'll have a chat, and maybe if I speak to my dad, kind of going to get their biased view. Sometimes,
Yes.
Sometimes
Some independence.
Sometimes the people closest to us can have tremendous biases, naturally, and not because they're trying to be harmful, but because they care so deeply, and they've got a lot of skin in the game. Whereas someone that's there to help and going to enjoy it and going to get fulfillment out of it. Like if you think about all the best work you've done with your clients, it's when you're able to have a really awesome and profound impact.
Absolutely.
I was able to really help.
Yeah.
And give a lot of support.
Yeah, totally.
And you'll know in the legal space, I mean, you're not in the litigation space anymore, but you'll know from the litigation space that, you know, there's a great book by Annie Jude called Thinking in Bets. And it's this professional poker player turned startup and VC and hedge fund advisor. And she's written a great book, Thinking in Bets. I can recommend it. Annie Jude. And she wrote this book about disassociating outcomes from decisions. And you'll know in litigation and business that you can make a great decision with the information you have at the time, but you may not get the outcome that you desire. I think litigation is super there because, right, you'll be going through a case and you'll be going how you articulated it. There was a missing piece of information.
But there's litigation risk and you can't control the risk.
Exactly. With all the information you had, are you content with the decision that you made? And I think in business and entrepreneurship also, we get so attached to our businesses. It's, you know, our identity comes from our business. Like, you get a bad outcome, it can really affect you and it can really be a drain. But actually, if you can get to a point where you can actually disassociate that outcome from that decision that led up to that outcome, it can maybe give you a bit of freedom and a bit like...
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of less off your... a bit off your...
Yeah, less of a burden, right?
Less of a burden.
Yeah.
What the information I had at the time, I'm happy with that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's really good advice. It's very wise. Yeah.
And it's not always the way. Right, but yeah, I highly recommend it's good. But
Okay.
there's probably a bit too much about poker in there, though.
Do you play poker?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I'm not yeah.
I like poker and backgammon. I like chess as well. I don't play much. But I was a professional esports player when I was growing up. And that's why I originally got into goldsmithing. I did a goldsmithing apprenticeship instead of going to uni.
How did you go from esports to goldsmithing? I don't know.
Well, I did the goldsmithing because I knew that an apprenticeship you could make money straight away. I was playing video games. I didn't want to get any debt. I'm a big anti-debt kind of guy.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to build debt. I want to build cash while I'm really passionate about gaming. I knew the goldsmithing career would give me cash quickly and allow me to basically pursue my passion of professional gaming. But gaming is also a bit like that in that you have incomplete information with someone on the other side of the kind of table that's making decisions with also incomplete information.
Right.
Like poker as well. Bridge, I guess, or, you know, backgammon, that's a game. There are always elements in chance, especially in business.
Absolutely.
Like right time,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
And this goes on. So I think it's good. And it's good for disassociating the outcome, right? Because you can get really upset with losing in a game or losing in business or losing in poker. But actually, are you actually okay that you just, you know, with that decision?
Yeah.
And that's given me a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
Because I read that book when I was going through the acquisition of my prior company, which was a gaming platform. And, you know, going through all the decisions I'd made all the way up to that acquisition and was I okay with them based on the information I had.
Yeah.
It gave me a lot of freedom around that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to keep sharing that. Thanks.
Yeah, do it. Highly recommend. So what does success look like for you then over the next 5 years in terms of your practice and your boutique firm? Are you going to bring someone on like a...
A junior. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it takes quite a large client base to feed, you know. Yeah. So it's still a bit of a hustle in the small business space. Small businesses tend to have less repeat work than large businesses. Yeah, so that's very small ones. Obviously, you know, it's a bit of a mix. But yeah, so I guess I'm growing my practice so that there's more like repeat clients. And I am, so, you know, I don't have a large sort of growth plan, but it is definitely in keep swimming in this current market, which isn't the best for small businesses. But, you know, there's always people trying to do cool things and needing support for it. So, yeah, and just maintaining the work-life balance. My kids in their mid to late teens, so they're starting to, like, you know, need less kind of support. Yeah.
They still do?
No, it's quite nice. Yeah. But also less, you know, less driving them to places, you know, like get your own license. Yeah. So just less of, which means I'm able to kind of give more to the business and the clients. So I'm looking forward to that.
Is there any sort of peripheral work you do or you want to get into to like kind of that's also of interest? I don't know, like boards and different things like that, or is that kind of something that you're interested in?
Well, yeah, I mean, I always do a not-for-profit sort of on the side. So a very long time ago now. In 2006, I co-founded an arts charity.
Oh, yeah.
So I was one of the founding sort of trustees and people running that. And that's called Show Me Shorts Film Festival. It's a short film festival that tours the country. And I was in that for maybe 16 years. And then I stepped back from that, and then I had a little bit of a breather, and then I joined another sort of community organisation. So I'm on the board of that. So I think, yeah, obviously it's incumbent on everyone, I think, to find some time in their life, you know, in their busy life, to give to the community one way or another as well.
That's nice. So I guess going back to that point that we talked a little bit earlier about, like, how to get the most out of and how to really kind of leverage good advice as a small to medium enterprise, where you're very fearful. You know, I think about all the small to medium enterprise owners I know that are very scared about using marketing agencies and different external agencies because there's a lack of control, maybe a little bit of a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
Because you don't really know. You know, often people don't really know if they're going to get a good deal. I think especially in marketing agencies, but I'm sure it also permeates with other service businesses like legal, etc. How do you think, like, let's say I've got an e-commerce business with a relatively novel problem, kind of query, where I'm needing some clarity from you. Like, what would be the 3 steps that you would take as being on the other side of the table to get the outcome that you want?
Right. Okay. So I guess firstly is just, because I don't necessarily get many novel queries, because I mean, I think that especially like if you're not sort of an international, if you're a domestic business, you know, it's pretty same thing. Yeah. So I think it's more.
It probably often feels pretty novel to the person, on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, I think come sooner rather than later. So the first thing is really timing. Just don't leave it too long. You know, find some budget and come for the advice sooner rather than later. Give the lawyer as much information as possible.
You ever give too much information?
Probably not about the specific issue. You know, you can get some people can kind of get a bit extraneous.
Right.
Sometimes people do maybe too much of their own research.
Right.
And then kind of give you a whole heap of stuff. And I think
prescriptive.
Yeah, or more like they need to just sort of focus on what's relevant.
Right.
But that's my job, is to help you work out what's relevant. So, I mean, I have the odd client that likes to go and use ChatGPT and collect a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm like, okay, but actually what you've just asked me to answer is this. If you want me to look at all that, it's going to actually take more time and cost you more money. So do you really need me to look at all that? And the answer's probably not. Yeah, so that's quite interesting, I think, because the tools exist, people will use them, and sometimes they're not always necessary.
You use them?
Adopting you? Not a whole lot.
I feel like you should do.
I mean, I have ethical and environmental concerns about these tools.
So you would be very specific and not specific.
Well, use them sparingly. I think is good advice. And I know a marketer who tells her clients to use AI tools sparingly because they're using a lot of resources.
Totally are.
Yeah.
Totally are.
Yeah. And then, so I spoke last Friday at Auckland Design Week. And I don't know if you know about Auckland Design Week, but it's only just had its second year. And it's an event for all kinds of designers. And I spoke to them about contractual issues and about, I guess, a little bit about how AI comes up and what you need to do to protect yourself in relation to it. And, you know, so that's kind of one of the ways that I obviously address it, and I advise my clients on it. And I was, you know, talking to the industry about it. But definitely, I think we should kind of use it sparingly and use it carefully because, definitely it can be wrong, and you do not. Rife. It's a prediction machine, so it will predict stuff that doesn't exist. So I think that's one of.
It speaks confidently wrong.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, you know, be careful about which tools you use and how you use them. And then obviously be careful about IP issues and don't share stuff with it that are confidential. There's privacy issues as well. So there's all that kind of stuff. So I am careful about it, and I encourage my clients to be careful about it as well. And also that their clients might care about whether they're using it or not. So how they use it in their business. They need to maybe, you know, have full disclosure about how they use it. Yeah. So, but I'm still a bit like sort of personal touch, and don't outsource too much of your expertise is my approach.
I mean, I think that like what we found from LLMs and tools is they're very effective querying languages. That's what it is. It's really a more effective, in my opinion, Google search at a base level. Now we're doing some really interesting internal projects with like agents. and actually fully autonomously engaging with each other, which is quite interesting from a research perspective, yet to be implemented in a more commercial sense.
Right.
The way I
Yep.
see it applicable in the commercial sense is, very easily technologists can implement good querying tools
Yep.
for their product and service,
Right.
which I think can help.
Yeah.
But for example, with our tool, I would say, if we've got an LLM built into our product,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, a lot of people ask for advice, and that means that unfortunately the tool isn't very good in those cases,
Right. Yeah.
because we're not in a position where we can.
Yeah.
So in the space of like financial advice, for example, if you don't have an advice license and you're not able to give advice, then it does make the tool it's not the best yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But as a get to some level of information quickly, very effective. Like, oh, now I'm here. Now I can dig in and do the work.
Yeah.
It's not a substitute for the work,
Yeah.
but it might be a substitute for searching for the right path that you want to dig into. I think is how I found it.
Yeah.
Especially from a research perspective.
Yeah.
And then the agent stuff is quite interesting. But again, it's how you ask, and it's very confident even when it's wrong.
Yeah, so you need to evaluate it.
Yeah.
So you need to, maintain your evaluation skills.
First principles approach of not everything that it spouts out is right. It's built in the image of its creators. There's a lot of bias associated with it.
Absolutely.
It's from the internet. It's learning from the people that programmed it.
Yeah.
So very interesting. I think it could help. There's so many ways it could help you with your work, though.
Yeah.
To improve your efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you'll be very due diligent about the model you choose.
Yeah,
That's almost going to be like, not a religion, but I'd say from a market perspective, people are going to probably choose the model that they trust most and that aligns with their ethical and kind of general views on the world. I think that's definitely going to be kind of prevailing. Like, is OpenAI going to be, are they a good steward of, all these things?
Yeah.
Have they stolen a lot of data or misused a lot of data to train?
Yeah.
And open, they're not open source, so
Yeah.
they're not very open. But I've never seen anything like it from a technology perspective in terms of like adoption and speed.
Yeah.
And I think it's typically because when there's a new technology, the incumbents aren't the ones to move so fast. But in this case, the incumbents with all the capital, because it's so capital intensive to innovate in the space, the large players have managed to gain such an incredible advantage.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, not as typical as previous technological life cycles.
Yeah.
So that concerns me in a pretty big way, but I have to move past my concerns, kind of work out how to navigate it, right?
Yeah.
Half it's going to forcing the market dynamics in terms of that, ultimately it's going to become a commodity to have a fundamental LLM model in many sense. You're going to get a lot of crossover and a lot of consistency across the models, and then you have to choose choose where you get into bed with.
Yeah. And I think as lawyers, we're quite good at critiquing. That's what, we're trained to do, right? So it means that we don't just adopt things willy-nilly as well. Yeah, we're a bit cautious about stuff.
Yeah, sometimes it's good.
Yeah. It's in our training. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod. I've really enjoyed it. It's been fun.
Me too.